Hi, everyone. I'm Rennie Gabriel, and I've had the pain of struggling financially most of my life. That deep, churning feeling in the pit of your stomach. As a teenager in high school, I couldn't understand the formulas in math class. I did the best I could with the homework, but literally I failed every single exam. In college, I did whatever I could to avoid any math class. Hopefully you can relate. I did whatever I could to avoid it. Believe it or not, after college, a few years later, I got a job in the financial services industry, and while it was all about math, it was different this time because they were money concepts. Money. This is a real photo from when I started. These were concepts and formulas I could understand. Compounding, present and future values, discounting, amortization, depreciation. These made sense to me. I did a good job for my clients, and I did a good job for myself. I earned a good living. But what happened was that as the money was coming in, the bills were piling up faster. I just figured if I earned more money, things would work out. And it doesn't work that way. After a couple of divorces and a business failure, I found myself at age 50, broke, and with less than $3,000 to my name. At one point in time, I had to collect soda pop bottles and cans to get the refund money to buy food for my family. Another time, I lost a home to the bank. And if this wasn't embarrassing enough, I was still a certified financial planner. What I discovered is just like 90% of the population, I never learned any of the foundations, like how to do a personal budget. Too many people struggle with crippling debt and too little income. What I discovered is your parents can't teach you what they don't know. Your teachers can't teach you what they've never learned. And society does not value financial education. Society might say wealth is bad. Having too much money corrupts you. Well, I'm going to give you some ideas to change that situation. Where does this fear of handling money or resistance to learning about money or this fear of wealth come from? It does come from society. As an example, the scripture might say, wealth is the root of all evil. Hollywood, fairy tales, movies, and even stories by Charles Dickens paint a picture that only the poor people are the good, the kind, and the noble, and the wealthy people are greedy and heartless. Look at the movie Titanic. You see that Jack is in the bowels of the ship. He's happy, and they're partying. And the fellow up at the top deck with all the rich people is evil and mean and heartless and disgusting. You look at another movie, Game of Thrones, with the Starks versus the Lannisters. You look at another movie like Dirty Dancing, you've got Patrick Swayze versus the parents. Wherever you're looking, Hollywood is telling you the poor people are good and the rich people are heartless and bad. When it comes to fairy tales, you've got Jack and the Beanstalk. It's okay for Jack to steal the gold from the giant, take the giant's the goose that lays the golden eggs, and ultimately kill the giant. The giant was wealthy. Is that the moral of the story? It's okay to kill the wealthy and steal their gold? Or you've got Aladdin, or you've got any story by Charles Dickens, and you're getting that same message. The scripture, if you've heard the expression, a camel can pass through the eye of a needle easier than a rich man can get into heaven, you can see how this message continues to be reinforced wherever you're looking. However, the richest people are also the biggest philanthropists. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has given away $36 billion to deal with global health, education, and poverty. Andrew Carnegie donated 92% of his fortune to education and to build libraries around the world. And the interesting part about it is one of those libraries happens to be here on the Wiley College campus. It's now your administration building. In today's dollars, Andrew Carnegie gave away what would be the equivalent of $300 billion. What I'm getting at is Oprah Winfrey donated $140 million to education. Denzel Washington donated $1 million to Wiley College to revive your debate team. What I'm saying is the wealthy are also philanthropists. You might say to yourself, I wish I learned more about money earlier. Or you may have the desire to learn more about creating wealth today. And what I'm getting at, it is never too late, because at age 50, I started over from broke, and I adopted 3 secrets of the wealthy that I'll tell you about shortly, and went from broke to multimillionaire. I used a 5,000-year-old secret that will still be working when you and I are dust. One of the things that I discovered is that, like I said, there are 3 secrets. You can remember them by the acronym AFI. Sometimes we're a slave to money and not the master of it. And these 3 secrets are the acronym AFI. It does not stand for the American Film Institute. It stands for Attitude, Forms, and Investments. And the first one, attitude, is that the wealthy people have a different attitude about money than most people. As an example, they don't waste small amounts of money. They pay themselves first, not their bills. They use debt to create wealth instead of using debt to buy consumer items. And they recognize wealth creation is a team sport. It is not a solo sport. Every business you can think of was not created by one person. But you may have a front person who's a visionary and a second person who's an execution master. How many of you are familiar with Warren Buffett? Yeah, most of you. How many of you are familiar with Charlie Munger? Hardly anyone. But Charlie Munger is half of Berkshire Hathaway. And in Apple, you've got Steve Jobs, and you've got Steve Wozniak. Steve Jobs had the vision, Steve Wozniak executed on it. You can go to business after business after business, and you can see it's a team sport, not a solo sport. When I went from broke, I used the concept, pay yourself first. Another concept for wealthy people in terms of attitude is that when they hear familiar information, they ask questions. Now, when I say I use pay yourself first, might you make a statement like, oh, I've heard that before, or I know that, or that's not new to me, or maybe even I've done that. When a wealthy person hears familiar information, they don't make a statement. Their attitude is they ask a question instead. They ask questions like, where will I do this? Who can support me with this? When will I start this? How will I put this into practice? Those questions lead to the actions that produce the results. Now, you may have some emotional blocks in the way. When I say pay yourself first, you may say, I can't do that. If I paid myself first, I wouldn't have the money to pay all my bills. But somehow every month, you go through and you pay your bills, and maybe there's nothing left at the end of the month to save. What I'm suggesting is that you deserve to own some of the money you're working for. And you do that by paying yourself first. And this is how the wealthy create their wealth. Like I said, it's been working for 5,000 years, and when you and I are dust, it'll still be working. The next secret under AFI is F for forms. There are 2 critical forms that I'm going to talk about, and one of them is called a spending register. You can choose any one of 650 apps from your phone to track where your money is going, or you could even use a blank, old-fashioned checkbook register. Just draw some columns, label them at the top like groceries, meals out, transportation, and within 10 seconds, you can write down how much money you've spent and know how much money you've got left, where it's going, and there's something else that you can do when you do your spending register. You can measure the level of pleasure from where you're spending your money. And you can say, well, was this a positive experience, a neutral experience, or a negative experience? And based on that, you'll know, do you want to spend more in that category or less in that category? I saw a journal kept by John D. Rockefeller that he did in 1850 when he was 11 years of age. In this journal, he tracked every single penny that came into his life and where he spent every single penny. And I venture to say that attitude and that practice is one of the things that had him become one of the wealthiest men in the world. The next form is the cash flow form. This is what I didn't understand until late in my life. This will tell you where the money's coming from, and your spending register will tell you where it's going. Now, when you find out where the money's coming from and where it's going, you've got information you can make decisions on. Without having information, how can you make conscious choices on where you want your money to go? The last item in AFI is the I, which stands for investments. The wealthy have different investments than most people. They are not limited to stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. They invest in peer-to-peer lending, tax liens, office and apartment buildings, operating businesses, initial public offerings, so many other things than stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. As an example, when you go to the bank and you deposit money, the bank pays you a low rate of interest. When you go back to the bank to borrow money, they charge you a high rate of interest. Their profit is that spread between the two, and you know that. But did you also know that you could do the same thing the bank does with what's called a peer-to-peer lending platform? You can go online, through that, loan money to other people, earn 6 to 12% on your money with as little as $2,500. Like I said, the wealthy also understand that wealth creation is a team sport. And one of the things they do are tax liens. Municipalities need their tax money to pay for schools and the fire department and other services. And if they don't get the money from the property taxes, it's difficult for them to function. So what they do is they put a lien on a piece of property and they sell those liens to investors who can earn between 12 and 20% with as little as a few $100s. That's also available to you, not just the wealthy. So when I put AFI to use in my life, it transformed it. And I recognized the first thing I had to do was change my attitude. I started paying myself first. I started to borrow money and use debt to buy apartment buildings. Instead of trying to do things by myself, I created a team. And those are the things that I put into practice. One of the things that happened as well was that becoming wealthy, I was able to become a better philanthropist. Up until that time, my wife and I had donated to veteran causes and animal causes and homeless shelters and things of that nature. And I had also donated a program to high schools to teach students how to handle money effectively. In addition, I started an online program to teach other people how to handle money effectively and become wealthy. The idea being that when I had more money, I became philanthropic, and other people, other good people, when they have more money, will also become philanthropic. And I was about to give up the program because it was a lot of work. It was earning good money, but I wasn't making the level of impact that I wanted. My wife brought to me a charity that rescues dogs from high-kill environments and trains them as service animals for soldiers who've come back with post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injuries. Dogs brighten my life. They warm my heart. And they're killed at the rate, put to sleep, euthanized, whatever word you want to say, at the rate of 1,800 per day. And dogs have a higher purpose in life. Our soldiers who protect our way of life here come back with post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injuries, and are committing suicide at the rate of almost 1 an hour. So from my business, I found a higher purpose for my money, and I donate 100% of my training to Shelter to Soldier. Like I said, dogs are euthanized way too much. But these soldiers who've received their dogs, not one has committed suicide. This program is saving 2 lives at a time. So we donate tens of thousands of dollars a year to Shelter to Soldier, and the result is 0 suicides. What I'm suggesting is, if you have some conflicting beliefs about money, you need to adopt new attitudes, like the attitudes that the wealthy have. And now that I've shared the 3 secrets of the wealthy with you, they're no longer a secret. You can develop wealth with a purpose. I don't know what your purpose will be. I don't know what touches your heart. But when you have wealth, you can be giving to help those who are less fortunate. You can end up supporting your community and create a thriving world. Wealth with a purpose. Thank you.